Dear friends, welcome to eSouthAsia.com web TV. Today we are playing chess with Musadiq Sanwal. He is a senior journalist and a Sufi thinker. Welcome to our lounge.
Thank you.
You see, you are a journalist and a Sufi thinker and a musician. So it's quite a contrast. As a journalist, you were counting dead bodies of bomb attacks by militants or drone attacks. On the other hand, you are taking refuge to this Sufism. How do you deal with this?
Sufism, actually, in my days when I was inspired by Sufis, mainly it was because of the poetry. And Sufism wasn't a very fashionable thing. Now it is. So I don't know whether Sufism still, because the other day I spoke to somebody and I said, I want Sufis to be out of my system now because I have lived long enough with them and I'm tired of them. But music, yes. Music is a kind of, but when somebody tells me, my mother used to tell me, that for Christ's sake, you should pray sometime. Namaz kabhi pad liya karo. So I used to tell her that I have my namaz. And the music is the kind of like namaz that I have. It gives me like that spiritual high that probably one needs from time to time. It calms me down. It makes me feel I'm not alone. It makes me feel there is something, somebody, somewhere outside listening to me. And I can talk to him or her, whatever I wish to.
You told us that Sufism is fashionable. Why it is fashionable? Why it's not part of our life?
Because we have pulled it out of, it's like Sufis used to be very political people. And suddenly we have started thinking it as alternative to extremism that we see in countries like Pakistan and in the Muslim world. And we think that to counter that extremism, we need Sufism. It's not that. It never used to be that. The major difference between like the Sufis, there were two kinds of Sufis. Sufis of Wahdatul Wujud, who believed in the oneness of God, and the Sufis who thought that king was second to God on earth, so humanity must obey the king. But the first kind of Sufis believed that God was in all of us, so that meant really dangerous thing for the state. That meant that God was inside a Hindu too, and God was inside an animal too. So we had to learn to respect then everyone equally, which was a dangerous, subversive idea. So we have like divorced it from that, and now we like sort of, which is why all these Sayyids, Arabs, Sufi who came, Persian speaking, they took off their attires, started wearing a dhoti like a Hindu Pandit, took a dholak and started singing in the local languages. All the Sufis who remained by the side of the courts, they always wrote either in Persian or in Arabic. They never adopted the local languages. So that sort of difference used to be there, which unfortunately is not anymore like really recognized. People don't see Sufism the way it used to exist. Now they see it as an alternative religion to religious extremism, not a force to bring humanity together, create consensus among them, and make them believe that we are all equal and we all should have equal opportunity in life.
What we could see that Sufism attracted most of the people in this part of South Asia, but gradually extremism took over and kind of overshadowed the whole scenario. How could it happen?
There has always been a struggle between the state and the Sufis. Establishment has always been anti-Sufis. Sarmad Mansoor was beheaded by Aurangzeb Alamgir on the stairs of Jamia Masjid, which is Delhi's Grand Mosque. State always saw Sufis as threat because one of the most interesting, like, you don't see Sufism as popular elsewhere among people as in South Asia. Now imagine a world of Hindu caste system where an untouchable could not be equal to you, and Sufis coming and giving this message, and they converting en masse because suddenly it empowers them to be equal. And then when Muslims built their own empire, their own kingdom, and they became the establishment, that caste system suited them because it was dangerous for everyone to be equal. The king and his family had to be superior to everybody else. So the seed of fundamentalism were sown from there on. Aurangzeb Alamgir was one of the first kings who really started all of this, and then it went on, and then British turned it into their own game. They played divide and rule politics. And the funny bit was that then the religious parties and the communists stood side by side against the imperialism. And they were not for the division of India, but once partition happened, suddenly all these religious parties had nothing to fight for. Till the point the British were here, they had something to fight for. That was the end of the Christian colonial rule. And suddenly they had a separate country which was made in the name of Islam, or it is said so. So suddenly they were out of job. They didn't have anything to do. So then they decided to turn this country into a real Islamic country. What that Islam is supposed to be, they had no clue, and we still have no clue. I mean, in the entire history of India, Mughals never converted as many Hindus to Islam as many Muslims we have tried to turn into good Muslims in the past 60 years. So that's what I feel, that's where the extremism grew and grew. And it suited our Pakistani establishment because India was supposed to be an enemy. The problem is that if your stories after 65 years, before 65 years are common, your legends are common, your culture is common, your language is common, then you create a myth that why you are not an Indian. While the reality is that you can't really divorce from that history of yours.
Like a new doctrine of divide and rule.
Yes, a new doctrine of divide and rule. So you promote an imagined identity of a Sunni Muslim, which is a false identity because you were either a Punjabi or a Sindhi or a Balochi or a Bengali. These were your languages. You sang the same songs. I mean, do the Bollywood songs have to get a visa to enter Pakistan? No. But a Hindu has to get a visa to enter Pakistan, and a Pakistani has to get a visa to enter it. All your heritage remains the same. So to counter it, you created an imaginary myth of a Muslim who is different from Hindus and from India, and then once you start, like, this vicious cycle never ends, because once you are not a Hindu, you are a Muslim because you are not a Hindu, then you are a Muslim because you are not a Jew, then you are a Muslim because you are not a Christian, then you are a Muslim,
labyrinth of
labyrinth of differences. Then you are a Muslim because you are not a Shia, you are a Muslim because you are not